A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us on today's morning show.
Are you unsure about it?
This is Morning Cafe, ladies and gentlemen. Karibuni sana. My name is Anne Odida. It's World Tutors Day. Of course, the day that has been set aside to honor the tutors worldwide on the impact that they continue to impact on the students worldwide.
All right, my name is Fred Ndimuli. Karibu sana to Morning Cafe. Today we are smack in the middle of 2025. Kama kuna mahali unaweza pima hivi na rula, hapa ndo tumesimama katikati ya hii mwaka. 183 days left to the end of the year, 186 days to Christmas. The countdown continues.
176 to Christmas.
To Christmas.
You said 186.
76.
Karibuni sana. Let's take a look at the local dailies. Taifa leo, Wakenya wazibwa mdomo.
Taeleza zaidi. People Daily, inside bitter wars tearing Raila party.
Daily Nation, Ruto's draconian bill on protests.
The Standard, blood money, a bit of white on the front page today.
NSC, 25% return beats bonds and bank deposits. Business Daily.
And on the Star, State House and Bunge, no-go zone in new anti-demos bill. I think they've explained everything we're talking about. Yes. So today on State of the Nation, we're going to be having a huge panel. Joe Nyoto, Senator Moranga, Beatrice Elachi, MP Dagoretti North, Professor Fred Ogola, economics and governance expert, Eddie Okech, Senator Migori, and there could be another one. So do stand by for that, coming your way at 6:30.
Of course. Later on, today's Wednesday, we're talking matters of the heart. Will you take back a cheating partner? That's the question.
Never, ever.
After you hesitate, calm down. Let's cross over to Uganda now. Daily Monitor, rulers of the streets, outlaws. It's a question there. More than 20 young men aged between 18 and 30 have been charged in 2 separate city courts of involvement in robbery that rocked the city, this is Uganda, as President Museveni picked nomination forms on Saturday. The group claims they were betrayed by those who hired them to take part in the procession.
Why does it sound very much like a Kenyan problem?
Uganda and Kenya.
Yeah, it's a same script. Young men paid to appear, then they do some few things and they end up in court. Now walipwa pesa kidogo. In Uganda, maybe walipwa
50 baht.
20,000 ya Uganda, which is about 500 bob per Kenya or something like that.
Luckily, it's a good thing that for Uganda, they can actually put them on the front page.
And that's the thing about Uganda. They actually plaster your face, your name, your age, and where you come from.
Wall of shame. At least if you're doing the same things Kenya and Uganda, we should also
The Kenyan goons remain faceless
something.
up until now. We still don't have any face or image of any...
Lakini wale walikuwa napigwa ndani ya super drum. Somebody should have taken photos of those people. Other stories here, how new HIV prevention injectable drug works. Oh, wow. That's the Daily Monitor, Uganda.
That's the only paper we have from Uganda. So we cross over to Tanzania. And we start off with the Citizen. Self-reliance goal boost after record TRA collection. Yeah, very positive thing. If it's that's the carrier of Uganda. The Tanzania Revenue Authority is now setting sights on supporting the country's journey towards economic self-sufficiency after collecting a record 32.26 trillion Tanzanian shillings in 2024-2025, which is 103% of the 31.5 trillion shilling target. I wish Kenya tunaweza fika mahali tunaongea hivi. KRA imesurpass target.
Yeah.
Then we can talk about heading closer towards self-reliance. In Kenya bado tuna rely on debt.
Tuko chini, in fact.
Tuko chini, KRA ifishiki, wanasema tuwe file tax returns, lakini bado pesa ingi. Other stories here on the front page, matters politics, fierce battles loom in CCM primaries, ile ndo chama tawala kule Tanzania. So ukipata hiyo ticket ni kama umeshinda uchaguzi. Concerners confidential documents end up as rappers. What used to be viewed as harmless street smart recycling is now making people uneasy because behind almost every piece of scrap paper is someone's private life unknowingly exposed to the world. You can imagine, because now that people have been filing tax returns for KRA online, quite a few years back, what happens is we used to just type on papers. We used to type and write everything on a piece of paper. Can you imagine all your documentation, your PIN number, your address, the amount of salary you earn being used as a rapper?
Nyama.
And CRDP Bank's Kijani bond listed on Luxembourg Stock Exchange. Fuel prices dropped for third month in a row. Monthly. That's a Citizen.
Alright, tukisalia kule gazeti la Mwananchi, vita ya ubunge CCM. Na licha ya mafuriko ya makanda kuchukua fomu kuomba uteuzi wa ubunge CCM, kuna vita nyuma ya pazia inayonguruma ya makada wakiwamo mawaziri, regional commissioners na wabunge kupigana vikumbo. Wako hapa mbele. Arusha mjini, Makonda na Gambo wanang'ang'ania kiti hapo, Simanjiro, Milia na Sendeka. All of these wanataka inaitwaje ticket ya CCM
za ubunge.
Za ubunge.
Kwa ile mela kuna Mabula na Kuihaya. Wengine kunaitwa Nyamagana, Masha na Mabula wanang'ang'ana. Na Kibamba ni Mtemvu na Kariuki.
Nilijua utasema Kariuki. I knew.
Kairuki.
Kairuki. Yes, vidokezo vingine huku Jamhuri yaomba muda zaidi kesi ya Lissu, yeye ataja uchaguzi. Anaongelea bado uchaguzi lakini
yako ndani Chadema waliambiwa wasijishughulishe na masuala ya siasa.
Bado anasema no reforms, no election.
Anaambia okay, anyway.
Okay. Ukwapuaji wa mizigo katika malori usiku tishio Pwani. Janga taarifa za watu kwenye vifungashio zikisambaa kule Tanzania. On the top strip, makusanyo ya TRA yatoa mwelekeo mpya Tanzania. We've talked about that. Na CRDB yaweka rekodi tena, bondi yatua kimataifa. That is the Cooperative Regional Development Bank.
Right.
So those are the regional newspapers. Let's take a look at the weather situation. The second day of July.
Kijibaridi cha asubuhi.
Lakini leo si mbaya sana. Walisema watu wanaitana sunshine wakusanyike waamue join waka.
So according to Zoom.earth, not much cloud cover across the East African region, but areas around Ethiopia and Sudan, you can see some nice system here on the border between Ethiopia and Sudan. DRC, Central African Republic, as you head towards the eastern side of the continent. A lot of cloud cover there. East Africa, kidogo tu lakini bits and pieces here of light cloud cover. Nikija baridi tu. Let's start off with the warmer sides of Kenya, and that's the northern part of the country. In Wajir, 24 degrees, feels like 25. Yes, definitely cloudy, but highs of 32. Ile jua haichomi sana lakini highs of 32, hakuna mvua huko, 0.1 millimeters.
Diani, coastal region, 23 degrees as we speak, feels like 24. Light rain expected. It's actually raining as we speak. Precipitation in Diani today, 5.1 millimeters, highs of 26 degrees. So, kule Diani?
Bit warmer, south coast. Okay. We go to the western part of the country, the city of Kakamega. Is it a city yet? Not yet. Rain likely at 4 p.m. today. Currently, it's 15 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy for the better part of the morning, and giving room to rain later on, starting at 4 p.m. 5.1 millimeters, just like Kilifi. So a bit of rain down south coast and kule western Kenya.
Ati imagine Kakamega city, surely.
Wewe mbona unachukulia hivi
kama wewe? Now
kabisa.
Kitui 16 degrees, feels like it as we speak. A partly cloudy day, highs of 26 degrees, and precipitation in Kitui 0.6 millimeters. Unaona dust all through. Hata July kuna dust.
Naona tuonea watu wa Kakamega.
Pole basi.
Back to the city in the sun. Definitely no sunshine today. Ain't no sunshine when he's gone. 14 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy for the better part of the day. Highs of 22 degrees. Precipitation here 0.1 millimeters. Hakuna mvua, ni vumbi tu na kijibaridi for the entire day. That's the weather situation.
10 minutes past 6, traffic inakaa vipi?
Shughuli za baridi sasa, and I think the cold actually affects a lot of traffic. Many people are working from home. Nimegundua hivyo because ukiangalia mabarabara at 10 minutes past the hour, a lot of green just heading to town, the usual culprits pale Makadara. After that, Haile Selassie Avenue is looking much better than it was yesterday. Areas around Muthurwa, Machakos bus station also clear this morning. Haile Selassie Avenue jana hii stretch yote ilikuwa red by now, but sai just dots of yellow and red here and there. The usual culprit ile what do you call Pangani interchange. It's actually not so bad today. A very short stretch of red pale. Tukienda further kule juu on Thika Highway, nothing. Thika Superhighway, nothing to report. It's green. Kangundo Road pia leo nimekuambia wanafanya kazi from home. green, both sides of the road. Very busy area ni pale Pipeline, matatu zinabebana pale, so pale heading towards Outer Ring Road. Heading towards Donholm from Outer Ring Road, pale a bit busy. Areas around Tasia as well. Zile zingine zote ni green. Mombasa Road all the way into town. Isipokuwa pale, there's this stretch between Imara Daima and that Enterprise Road junction. You can see hapo kuna konga na shida, malori zikijaribu kupanda mlima. Kwingineko, green all the way into town on Expressway, Langata Road, Ngong Road, Bagathi Way looking good, and also Wayaki Way. Nothing to report there. So that's a traffic situation. Jogoo, tulikuwa tushaangalia
okay.
Ni stretch tu ya Makadara. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the quarter video.
The most profound joys are often hidden in simplicity. Only those with depth, patience, and awareness can truly recognize their quiet, extraordinary brilliance.
All right, let's take an in-depth look into the local dailies. We start off with the Daily Nation. Ruto's draconian bill on protests. Stung by a wave of youth-led anti-government protest, President William Ruto's administration has lined up a new bill that seeks to demarcate areas for holding demos, while stipulating fines and jail terms for anyone found in non-designated locations such as Parliament, police stations, courts, and other protected areas. Public Order Amendment Bill 2025 has divided MPs and legal experts. Now, 100,000 Kenyan shillings is the fine if found guilty of participating in demonstrations in non-designated areas. 3 months jail term if found guilty of participating in demos outside the demarcated areas. This is the bill. Bado sio law. 100 meters. Anasema demonstrators will not be allowed to picket in areas within a radius of 100 meters from the precincts of Parliament, protected areas, and a building in which a courtroom is situated. Now, the sponsor of this bill is none other than Esther Passaris. Anasema, this law is not meant to criminalize protests. It's not meant to silence anyone, but to bring order and protect people. It's a measure to ensure protests are not hijacked by goons. Order is not an infringement of democracy. And the question I was asking, they really did trust Passaris with that bill. Nilikuwa nasikia akiulizwa swali nyingine, anasema, I think that was an error. It should have been 200.
You know, most of the protests and protesters, including doctors, teachers, they always present petitions to Parliament. Either to the Senate or the National Assembly. Lakini sasa amesema kama muna protest mkae huko 100 meters radius musikaribie bunge. Why are representatives of the people scared of meeting their constituents?
So you always submit your, if this bill is passed, you cannot submit your petition to Parliament.
Unatafuta ule mtu wa kutumwa. Alafu unatafuta messenger, mnamwambia tukiwa hapa wewe peleka hii bunge.
Unangoja ile MP kuje
huko GPO.
Anywho, still a bill once again. No, thank you. Over 42,000 students shunned varsity placement. More than 42,000 candidates who qualified for university admission after sitting the 2024 KCSE examinations did not apply for placement through KUCCPS, government has revealed. This represents about 17% of the 244,563 candidates who attained the minimum university entry grade of C+ and above. Now, 7,640 is the 2024 KCSE candidates, the number who attained C+ and above but chose TVET courses over university education. Oh, wow. Now a lot of students are going the TVET way. Kitambo isi kitungeambia mtu.
Kwenda campus sasa sio, it's no longer that enticing.
Hii sasa ndio iko juu. Lakini ile vita ya Twitter haishi of diplomas and degree. Hiyo itaisha though.
All right. So it's the reasoning behind this that I think we should take a look at. So according to the ministry, this means these eligible candidates are not, they're about 17%, almost a fifth. About 1 in 5 hawajisikii kwenda huko. Is it because of the new university funding model, ama they feel that there are no skills, proper skills being imparted at the university level? That's a question.
Other stories here. Uhuru reclaims Jubilee. Kalonzo revamps Wiper ahead of 2027 elections. Retired President Kenyatta has reclaimed ownership of Jubilee Party as Wiper Democratic Movement of Kalonzo Musyoka officially rebranded to Wiper Patriotic Front in preparations for the 2027 contest. Hebu sema hiyo kitu in half. WPF.
WPF.
WPF, okay.
Wiper Democratic Front.
WPF.
Or Wiper Patriotic Front.
Patriotic Front.
Sasa wameacha ile democracy.
So mouthful. WPF.
WPF.
Wait for your tumor to grow or pay cash. SHA to cancer patients. This is a special feature. It's on page 3. Dead or alive? Kiangui is still on the front page.
Kiangui.
Kinyagia. Let me call him Kinyagia. Where is blogger Ndia Ngui? Judge tells DCI to end drama and produce missing man. Justice Chacha Mwita jana alisema, I don't want your drama, DCI. Come tomorrow, tell me the whereabouts of that young man. That story is on page 2. Nyangui has been missing for 11 days today over a tweet he made about the June 25th protests. On the back page of the Daily Nation, Coach Odemba reveals secret to police bullets Premier League success. That is Beldine Odemba. She has attributed the team's success in the Football Kenya Federation Women's Premier League to excellent management support. And new Leopards boss Ambani eats, drinks, sleeps, and football. That is Boniface Ambani. He won on Sunday. That's the Daily Nation.
Right. Matters business. Na ule jamaa wa PNG ametuharakisha tuende biashara. NSE 25% return beats bonds and bank deposits. Investors gained 477 billion shillings in first half of the year on share price jumps. Najua bado watu wanasema tuende money market fund ama tuende NSE ni stocks ama ni nini. People squeeze wanaongea big investment words. Fixed deposit and treasury bills returns fall on lower central bank rate. All right. That's a big story on the front page of the Business Daily. Another highlight, UAE races to become fastest growing buyer of Kenyan goods. The United Arab Emirates is now the fastest growing buyer of Kenyan goods, well ahead of the official start of a recently signed bilateral deal aimed at easing trade between the two countries. On the ticker, feature phones stage comeback with 2 million additions. Feature phones ndio gani zile? Kuna zingine Jubilee Alliance. Gets 2.75 billion capital boost. Finally, lower electricity petroleum prices hold down inflation at 3.8%. That's the Business Daily.
Taifa Leo, wa Kenya wazibwa mdomo. Visa vya utekaji nyara, udhalimu wa polisi vya shusha hadhi ya Kenya kulingana na ripoti. Wakenya wamefumbwa vinywa huku wakinyimwa uhuru wa kujieleza, kutekwa nyara, kuuawa kiholela, kuandamwa mitandaoni huku wanahabari wakidhulumiwa na maafisa wa serikali kinyume cha katiba. Hii ni kulingana na ripoti mpya iliyotolewa na shirika la Civicus. Wanasema we should not be showing what is happening in the country, manake tunashtua investors. Lakini letu jicho tu. Jamaa ya mmoja wa vijana waliotekwa nyara wa Singishu bado wanatafuta haki. Askari waangaisha mwandamanaji jijini Nairobi hivi majuzi. Vidokezo vingine hapa, kilichotumika kumvumisha Raila ni siri. Mwanasheria mkuu asema kiasi cha fedha kilichotumika kwa kampeni ya Odinga ni siri ya serikali. Wow.
Okay.
Abu Joho azungumzia kauli ya koti, asema watasaka mbinu mbadala kusaidia Wakenya kupata ngano na mpunga nafuu. Elon na Trump warushiana cheche upya. Bromance ilisha.
Hiyo isha, huwa ikai sana. Hata ile ya Uhuru Kenyatta na William Ruto ikai sana. Hata William Ruto na Rigathi Gachagua ikai sana. Ukiona wawili wanafuatana sana, hiyo itakwisha tu.
Well, wanasema bilionea akosoa sera za utawala wa kiongozi huyo aliyemuunga mkono kwa hali na mali. Kule juu, Uhuru ndiye bosi halali Jubilee, msajili wa vyama athibitisha ndiye kiongozi wa Jubilee Party. Na maskini Man City na Inter dimba FIFA, miamba wa Italia na Uingereza nje ya dimba la klabu bingwa duniani. Taifa Leo.
Right, and we go to the Standard now. Screaming headline, blood money. Hush hush. Inaitwa hush money in the US. It's become routine, almost a ritual. The state pulls a trigger, then shows up with flowers and a fat check. No justice, no accountability, just blood on the pavement and a press release to clean it up. You're being gunned down in broad daylight. The government's response? Waived hospital bills. Token donations revealing lack of respect for human life. Boniface Kariuki was shot at point-blank range in the head during a protest against police brutality. He died 12 days later in ICU. Government says it will waive his hospital bill. Albert Ojwang died in police custody, and before suspects were even charged, the government delivered a 3 million shilling condolence package, built his parents a house, and promised his widow a job. So the story is extensively covered on pages 4, 5, 6, and 7, just about how these cases are being handled. There's no justice, just money. Bora kuna pesa, unaambia mtoto wako ndio alikufa, lakini we shika hii pesa, tulie.
3 milioni 2.
Ama hiyo bili hospitali tutakulipia, mbona unapiga kelele? You see? That's a main headline there, and it's covered on pages 4. Blood money, Kenya's deadly dance of death compensation. Na judge summons Amin over missing blogger. Hatujui atapatikana katika hali gani. Pale ule government spokesperson, government of spin doctors as officers clash on state's position. Ni kama siku hizi mtu anasema hivi, mwingine anasema hivi. Hawajui exactly kutaendaje, lakini pressure is mounting on President Ruto to sack security chiefs as Sabasaba itakuwa Jumatatu wiki ijayo. Wanasema watu wanarejea wapi? Barabarani. MPs split over Pasari's new push to redefine protest zones in cities. Na unajua, I've been making that calculation. Wamesema a radius of 100 meters from Parliament, State House, and any space hosting a court. So if you look at Parliament 100 meters from there, probably you get to Holy Family Basilica. Or, no, actually, to GPO. If you move south for about another 100 meters, you get the Supreme Court. So 100 meters from the Supreme Court, meaning that you cannot be anywhere near City Hall. Probably the nearest part you can be is ile library inakuanga town, Macmillan Library, 100 meters from there. On the other side, you have to be on Haile Selassie Avenue. On the other side of town, you have to be inside Uhuru Park. But if you go into Uhuru Park, then you get closer towards Milimani Law Courts, which also has its own radius of 100 meters, meaning you cannot be anywhere near the CBD. That's the effect.
Still a bill.
On the back page, Inzaghi hails his team show as they leave Man City on their knees, na kuna ule jamaa Erling Haaland amepiga magoti. The kind of picture I want to see on a lovely Wednesday morning. The Standard.
You know, it's funny how they've done this thing. From here to this protest, this one is killed because of this.
Alafu hii inakuja anafanyiwa waiver ya bili ya hospitali. But they're both dead.
People Daily, inside bitter wars tearing Raila party. The story is on page 4. Why opposition alliance wants Murkomen and CO sacked. That one is on page 7. Over 40,000 students failed to apply to join public universities. Of course, we've talked about that. A lot of students are opting for TVET courses. And Kenyans win Killing Curve Prize for Climate Solutions. On the top strip, the changing tech survey campaign tactics ahead of 2027 elections. Tumeanza mapema though. Matters election.
All right.
All right. Hatuna The Star leo.
Yani kama The Star hatuna. Tulikuwa nayo copy pale ndani, sijui wamesema tusisome ama nini.
Walilala. Tuangalie caricature. This is the Standard or People Daily?
This is Standard.
Standard. This is DCI boss Amin Mohamed caricatured here. Anasema we are pursuing those who planned the protest lakini the gun is pointing inampoint yeye mwenyewe. He's pointing at himself with a gun.
Is this cartoon is suggesting that the institution he leads was part of those who planned the protests? Because the gun is pointing at him.
Maybe anajishoot kwa mguu, but the
face. Kwa mguu, anaweka kwa sura.
Well,
walisema alienda bunge na akaswear with the holy book. Alafu akadanganya. Tapigwa na radi. Cartoon on the People Daily, they talk about the Shah and the kind of ghosts that is returning Shah to the grave. The same ghost that sent NHIF to the grave. So RIP NHIF. The story we saw yesterday on the front page of the Daily Nation, that the same problems that bedeviled the NHIF are the same problems bedeviling Shah now, that hospitals and other cartels have found ways of duping the system and getting the money. That's a cartoon on the People Daily. Same ghost, they're asking.
The Star, everyone is asking where is Ndiang'u, including Inspector General, DCI boss, and of course court. Where is Ndiang'u?
The habeas corpus order,
yes,
is in force, but DCI wanamwangalia ni ile sisi hata si hatujui.
Ako wapi?
This is a cartoon on the Daily Nation. Kuna jamaa pale ameketi kwenye kiti, ameweka mguu pale, unajua sasa umetulia mahali unaekelea mguu pale umechoka, lakini kuna kidole kimefura cha mguu. Imeandikwa June 25th na simu ya rununu pale. Kinjamaa mwenyewe nani? Rais. Asema let's lay blame on the civil society. We cannot ignore the kind of pain on that big toe.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. State of the Nation?
Yes, these legislators and experts will be in studio. Joe Nyoto, Senator Muranga, Professor Fred Ogola, governance expert, Beatrice Elachi, MP Dagoretti North, and Eddie Okech, Senator Migori. They will be in studio in a short while to discuss the big headlines. Key among them, Ruto's draconian bill on protests in Yanasema, 100 meters from parliament, from the courts, and from other protected areas. Hakuna mtu atakaribia. So ukicount DOD, State House, Parliament and the courts, I think the closest you can protest or demonstrate, hata sio Kibera, because there's a court in Kibera. Uende huko na uweze karibia Lang'ata Road sababu kuna majeshi pale. Hata ukienda Thika Road, you cannot go to, you cannot karibia NIS headquarters, you cannot get close to the GSU headquarters. You can, I think and you cannot even protest in Githurai because there's a military barracks there. So you go to Ruiru, Ukuluilo.
We still have time. Maybe we can take a look at the traffic situation one more time.
Right. Yeah, the traffic on Jogoo Road is building up slowly. You can see now this stretch of yellow is turning into red from Makadara all the way to the Likoni Road roundabout. But after that, it's not so bad. Even the City Stadium roundabout is not so busy. And Haile Selassie Avenue building up now. We can see longer stretch of red, but not as bad as it was yesterday. So leo ni kama wale wanaenda Marikiti, you're going to have an easier time there. Tuone kama watu wa Kangundo Road wameamka, and no, they have not. Hata ukienda Komarok ama Kayole ni kama watu wanafanyia kazi nyumbani leo. Outer Ring Road further towards the airport, it's getting busier around Pipeline, Feather and Tasia. The other section that is giving us concern is the eastern bypass between the Outer Ring Road interchange and City Cabanas, because I can see a long stretch of yellow, lakini sana sana inakuanga ni matatu zikibeba watu kwenda town. Traffic on the expressway is not so bad. Pale chini Mombasa Road ile ya chini hata imepungua kidogo ukitoka Imara Daima kwenda pale GM. Not so bad. After that it's green all the way. Tuende upande ule mwingine wa town, upande wa Thika Road. Hapa kutakuwa na shida kidogo. And yes, you can see that now that stretch of red has extended way beyond the Pangani interchange into a bit of Forest Road and Muranga Road as well. It's going as far back as KCA University on Thika Road. Na pale between Kasarani and Garden City, pia another long stretch of yellow. So Thika Road is really building up. Hey, hapa ukifika saa hii utaumia kiasi, especially the Pangani interchange.
All right, it's 31 minutes past 6 a.m. Interact with us on our socials, TV47 Kenya on Facebook and on YouTube. On X at TV47 News KE. My handle is at Ann_Dida. The hashtag is Morning Cafe.
My handle is at Fred Indemoli. See you after the break.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth, as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home, do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water.
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you have
A day after the death of Boniface Kariuki, a mask vendor who was shot by a police officer at close range during Gen Z protests, the family is now seeking justice for their son.
Mtoto wangu kuenda na si kazi alikuwa anafanya na hakuwa na makosa yoyote.
Sisi tumechoka na hii serikali kushinda imetutishia kila saa. Kariuki alikuwa mmoja wetu na hakuna kitu amefanya, wacha kutuua bure.
In condolence with the family, opposition leaders led by Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka have condemned the government for allegedly condoning extrajudicial killings, noting that they will file a case against it.
Tutasimama na familia hii na tayari tumeamrisha mawakili wetu pamoja na ile tume tumeanzisha juzi ikiongozwa na JB Muturi kuhakikisha kwamba kuna hali ya kuregeshewa heshima.
The opposition now calling on Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen to resign, terming him reckless in leading the security docket.
Kupiga vijana wa Kenya risasi na kuwaua kiholela. Is this a good job, Bwana Ruto? Is this a good job, Bwana Murkomen? Bwana Murkomen, the least you can do as the Minister for Interior is to resign immediately.
The burial plans for the late Boniface Kariuki are yet to be announced.
We have not yet done any preparations because due to the case how it is, we still have to do some post-mortems and everything due to the case matter.
Joash Onsare, TV 47, Nairobi.
All right, you're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. Good morning once again. That story that has just played on TV forms the basis of our main discussion, or our first discussion this morning. We're going to have other discussions as well. This is what features also on the front page of the Standard, Blood Money. The story we've just watched talks about Boniface Kariuki, who passed on 2 days ago after spending quite a number of days in ICU. And after being declared brain dead. What we saw on Sunday this week was the Ministry of Health issuing a statement waiving a medical bill for Boniface Kariuki and other people who were injured during the protests. Meanwhile, Albert Ojwang, who died in police custody like 2 weeks ago, there will be a funeral mass this morning at Baptist Church Ridgeways. But the story on the front page of the Standard is blood money. And it says it has become routine, calling it hush hush. If you've heard of hush money in the US, this is exactly what's happening in Kenya. Almost a ritual. The state pulls a trigger, then shows up with flowers and a fat check. Allow me to introduce my panelists. We're going to have a very huge panel this morning, but two of them are already in studio. Professor Fred Ogola, economics and governance expert. Good morning, karibu sana.
Good morning, Fred.
And Eddie Okech, Senator, Migori County. Good morning, karibu Senator.
Good morning, Fred.
Now, the question is, are we seeing a trend here that even in cases of extrajudicial killings, that we are debating whether to pursue justice or pacification, that it's easier for the state to spend money, taxpayers' money, in pacifying families of the bereaved instead of pursuing justice?
Fred, not that the trend begins today. The trend begins right in post-election violence. And the trend begins with who has formed the government. The government is formed by ICC. It's an ICC government. And truth be said, it's on record that the sitting president was an ICC suspect for the post-election violence. It is also true that the deputy president was his lawyer in the ICC. It's also true that DCI, Mohammed Amin, was a witness on the side of the president and against Kenyans in the post-election violence, the ICC case. So when you have a state that is performed by criminals of a previous one, like the post-election violence, what are you expecting? So for me, the trend is not just in blood money, the thing. We also talk about blood parliament. Blood is all over the place in these people's hands. As far as I'm concerned, it was a very big mistake to form this ICC government. And they're performing what was done earlier. In fact, people are dying more than what happened in the post-election violence. If you look at the young people who have been killed, you look at their tact, what has been done, and they know how to cover up. They throw in something quickly like, Ojwang's father left Homa Bay, affording only his fare, which he borrowed. Now, after he arrives in town, you hear someone is throwing this money, someone is throwing that money, and then telling you we shall be together, and then you hear now you meet governors. They didn't need that. Now, if in fact for Ojwang, I don't want to talk because I'm so close to the family, let me try to talk a little bit of the one of Boniface Kariuki, which is, for me, is where if you want to see the evil of blood money comes from. This young man did not need to go to hospital, isn't it? So waiving his hospital bill, what have you given back to the family? Mm-hmm. He was alive, he was running, he was jovial, he was a family member. I mean, then now, even if you tell me you have waived his medical bill, what are you giving to me? Mm-hmm. And now you leave me with somebody who is incapable. Actually, to be declared brain dead is dead. So, God was not a fool to put the brain inside the skull. Fred, the most important organ you have in your body is your brain. Mm-hmm. That's why it is kept inside the skull. There is nothing else inside the skull. You can say your eyes, you may lose your eyes, but you can still operate. So, according to me, the government is taking the cart before the horse. When something happens to young people, the first thing is justice. What has happened to these young boys? How have they been killed? Who is culpable? First, before I will compensate, I'll waive that bill.
Isn't that the problem, Senator, that we are very quick to demand for compensation for lives lost instead of seeking justice? Should that be the case, that as long as there's money, then the case just ends there?
Good morning once again, Fred. And it's tough. It is a tough time, and it's a tough conversation that we're having in our country today, because we've been in these spaces, these situations, this sad state of affairs in the country over and over and over. When Ojwang died, I think I was the senator who took it upon himself to actually confront what will be seen as the powers to be and, requested that our house stops its business that was scheduled in our order paper to make sure that we summon the security forces, including the minister, so that we could deal with this issue for once and for all. And the reason why I strongly took that stance was, one, because of the stolen ears from Ojwang. That is a young person who had a lot, not only for himself in his life, but also to his family and even to a generation. He had a contribution to make. He's a Kenyan who had a voice and who had passion and who had a vision for himself. But then the second reason is because I strongly believe that there is no substitute to justice. There is no way in our borders when somebody dies, then compensation replaces justice. That cannot be tolerated anymore. When we talk about justice, what would be commensurate to anything that replaces death? I don't think there is anything commensurate. That's why the Hammurabi laws used to talk about an eye for an eye. And because our laws do not sometimes get to the point of an eye to an eye, what is the closest possible we can get to justice? And for me, that is making sure that the people who are culpable in the death of Ojwang and the death of other young people are actually arrested, arraigned in court, and thrown behind bars. That's the least we can get. But even then, it's not commensurate. But that said, I also don't think that it's particularly ridiculous to seek for compensation after justice. Remember, I've said that justice is the primary thing that we must fight for. Because to some of these families, Fred, and actually most, actually not even some, actually all of these families that I've seen the deaths of, because I've been in the streets, Fred, I've been in the streets and seen a number of families whose kids end up dying in the streets, barely have nothing. In fact, to them, these kids are their pension. These kids are their insurance, where insurance doesn't work.
And it would appear that the state has discovered that issue of poverty. Madam Elachi, welcome. Madam Elachi is Beatrice Elachi, MP, Dagoretti North. Karibu sana. The issue of blood money, where it is much easier to pay off a family after their child has died at the hands of police, that poverty plays a key role in this. Most of them come from very poor backgrounds, and when money is splashed or goodies are splashed their way, then for them that is a proper substitute for justice. They no longer seek it. Do you see a risk if we continue on that route?
Well, thank you, Ndumile. I don't think it is fair to tell the families that they find it right when they take the money, that it is okay. I think in their hearts it is a circumstance that is very sad. So even as they take the money, I believe definitely you still remain with the pain in your heart. But you see, sometimes also it is something that we need to ask ourselves. In all that, what do you do to such a family? Yes, we'll look for justice. We'll look for all this. But in the end, what happens to this family? Because I believe you have to do something. Either way, you will have to, if you have a heart of understanding that family, if this was a breadwinner, so what happens in the end? Fine, we have looked, we've got, and I think that is what they always feel. First of all, this justice of Kenya, where I'll go to court, I will go to court. Even I will not have the money to get into this court to start fighting for my own son. That I am coming all the way, the case is in Nairobi, I work every month, then the case, then the lawyer will push it. Even the lawyers nobody has a heart at that time, by the way. And then the most sad part in this process in Dimuli is that we talk about it now, all of us. Trust me, after 2 months, nobody remembers the family. Nobody. We should not lie, because I have victims of our own. And I'm telling you, I think I'm the only one who ends up in that family.
So are we
once
saying
in a while.
compensation is the most important thing in such instances?
It's not.
Because it
It is
also,
not. I have
it is
said.
also among the list of 10 items in the MOU between ODM and UDA that the issue of compensation of all pending claims for people who've been killed in these demonstrations, going as far back as the ODM demonstrations, that is what your party leader really is pushing for.
Why would you say that is what our party leader is really pushing for? I think he thought, and it has been there since 2007, that it is fair to start from a process as you move, because he knows, and we all know, that that justice takes very long. So isn't it just fair to show this family, yes, we have accepted, first of all, we have absolutely done wrong. To me, it's a very ethical, immoral anyway, because in the end, this family will always remain in the dark without telling anyone. Who takes them even for counseling? Who does all those things? Because there are so many things after. After. You see, when you, I will say, because I nowadays I have understood, you have these people all over you. Then all of a sudden, you remain now you.
Question. If it was a
Let me just finish.
from
Let me just finish.
an affluent family.
Let me just finish. You remain you and you. Is when now you start grieving. So all those mothers, that is what they go through after all this. So even if we want to now come for a better solution in all this madness, is justice must be as quick as possible, and justice for real, where I will go home content that regardless of everything I've gone through, but I have seen justice.
The issue, and I'm asking, is that it would appear that this compensation, reparations, and would appear to have surpassed the need for justice. That once the families are pacified because they are from a poor background, they no longer pursue justice because they see as if it's going against the state that provided the compensation in the first place.
But you see, you don't close the case.
What if the person who died came from an affluent family? Would this suffice?
No, they will push. But even in this other one, you as the lawyer who picked the case, if you were genuine to this family, won't you pursue this case? Because sometimes also you find the day of when the things are moving, we are 10 lawyers. So what happens in the end when the person now, the victim has been buried, what happens to the lawyers who are pushing the case? So I think it is fair, even the lawyers, to say, the moment I decide I'm going to do pro bono, let me move with this case and let me question every time as I move. Don't just reach a point and now decide you're leaving it because maybe there's no resources for that. And always remember, nowadays it's virtual, so you can do virtual these cases.
All right.
And the families can be told how to just engage in the case.
Allow me to welcome Joe Nyoto to the panel. Joe Nyoto is a senator, Murang'a County. Good morning, karibu sana.
Good morning, thank you.
The headline on the front page of the Standard screams blood money. The fact that the state has found it easier and it has now become routine, almost a ritual, for the state to pull the trigger, then show up with flowers and a big check for the families. Talking about Albert Ojwang, whose family, even before he is buried, family has already received money, a promise for a job, a house for the widow. We're talking about, yet he died in police custody. We're talking about the other young man, Boniface Kariuki, who was shot on camera and finally lost his life this week. And then immediately after that, the Minister of Health comes out and says they're going to waive the hospital bill for this individual. And it would appear it's very easy, as long as the state has access to money and the state coffers, that they can use the same to pacify families that should probably be seeking justice for their kin. Do you think that we are replacing justice simply by pacifying families?
Thank you, Fred, and allow me to first pass my deepest condolences to the family of Boniface Kariuki, who comes from my county. This is an only son. This is the firstborn in that family. I visited that family last Thursday, and I went home in Kangema, in a ward called Mogoro. And that family is an extremely poor family, Fred. And the mother specifically is distraught. And I do not even want to imagine how she is now, because by that time, there was still hope that Bonnie would come back to life. I don't know what has happened to the mother now, that I've not had time to go back since the news came out. And to answer your question, and I also continue commiserating with the family of Albert Ojwang. I know that's another family that has been hit very hard, and there are very many other families, Fred, that have lost their loved ones through a careless police bullet. And my thinking is that we should not even be talking about this blood money. We should be talking about justice being delivered to the families who have lost loved ones. That is the most important thing. What we should be talking about is a situation where no one else, that we come up with ways and means of ensuring that no other family suffers the pain that these families have suffered, simply because the state, through the police, want to silence dissent. Because this is all it is, Fred. So I think we should call upon the state. It must accept to be critiqued. It must accept that people have rights, and specifically to the president. And I said it here last week. The president must stop seeing human beings as animals whom he studied when he was doing his zoology classes at the university. That human beings are human. They are spiritual beings. They are not animals like any other animal he has ever studied about. So that we do not have any family, because the pain, Fred, I know you have seen the images of these families. The pain is too, you cannot even start imagining how they are feeling, just because somebody is saying that we are not being ruled in the right way, that our country has been mismanaged, the economy has been mismanaged, and to the police officers, we must also tell them. And I'm glad that they are now they are waking up, that when you obey unlawful orders, in fact unreasonable orders, that those top cops, your bosses, will leave you to suffer on your own. So as you pull the trigger, please, as a police officer, please know that you will suffer the consequences alone. And of course, we have seen this with the police constable Mkhwana. We have seen this with OCS Talam. And Albert Ojwang would not have lost his life had DIG Lagat, who is still walking free. In fact, he has not even resigned. He only stepped aside. Had he behaved responsibly, had he known and accepted that when you're in public office, people will critique you, we would not have reached where we have. And so we appeal to the police officers. And when we talk about, mismanagement of the economy, when we talk about, because this is where the deaths are coming from, when we talk about the invasion and mutilation of payslips, the police officers should also look at their payslips and know why people are going to the streets before they pull the trigger. But these monies that are being sent to the families, I think, it's important that I think it's appreciated in a small way, because like that family of Boniface Kariuki, to raise about 800,000 would have been an uphill task. So it's a good thing, but it's not the most ideal situation, because you cannot buy back life that is lost. So let us care for lives, but this money, when it comes, it pacifies, but it should not be the ultimate. The ultimate should be delivering justice, avoiding avoidable deaths.
Blood money is a big headline on the front page of the Standard. Justice versus pacification. Should this be the way, now that it's almost become routine for this administration. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we continue talking about the muzzling of the Kenyan society in as far as protests are concerned. On the front page of the Daily Nation, the headline is Ruto's draconian bill on protests. We'll be looking at that after the break. You're watching Boniface.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth, as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home, do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50 going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane.
All right, welcome back to Morning Cafe. We continue with this discussion, and yes, during the break, I've just realized that this discussion cannot rest like that. There's definitely, because we're looking at blood money and the description by the standard of this trend by the administration of using money, state resources, to pacify families that have lost their kin through extrajudicial killings. And there's the argument that there could be necessity for these reparations and this kind of comfort from the government. But should it come at the expense of justice? That's a question we are asking. That's while some families may be pacified enough not to pursue justice, maybe that may not suffice for every other family. Some families are not keen on compensation. But could there be a need for compensation, Bonafredo Gola, and at what point?
Fred, let me first start by looking at this matter more philosophically so that we understand what we are talking about, because it seems that my friends here maybe have not appreciated what we are talking about. There is a gentleman who was on the downside of the river, seeing bodies coming from up the river, is analogy, and he was picking them and burying them for 2 years. So the question was he supposed to be concerned about picking the bodies and burying? Because that's a good work for society, isn't it? Instead of looking at what is causing this death. Later on, more intelligent person went to the source of the river and found out there was a war on the other side of the river. So the priority was to stop the war so that there will be no need to bury dead bodies. So my fellow here, you are senior than me because you are in parliament, and you are the ones who actually needs to address this issue. If you are saying even, Joe Nyotu, that we need to look for even preventive justice, if there's such a word, isn't it? My senior, you went to, and you said you stopped parliament to debate about justice for Ojwang, isn't it? Crocodile tears, my brother. Crocodile tears. MPs do that. In fact, also they talk about blood. We can also talk about blood parliament, because parliament opened the whole day to massage Kenyans' ego that they are mourning and they are keeping a president in office who is causing the death. Impeach him. Because if somebody has killed people, how many people have died under William Ruto's hands? And you can attribute to the last coin. Who is giving this money? The president, isn't it? So he's the one killing and giving money. It's like you put your hands in that, then you wash again with clean water. Then again you go back to that. So we are also talking about something, rank over justice. They are saying they are in government, isn't it? So the rank given for them in ODM is more important. It comes at the expense of justice. So they can't talk. They don't see evil. They don't smell it. Because we are in government, the positions we are beginning is so important that we cannot say truth to power. So it's not even about money anymore. These people are in government. They are enjoying the trappings of power. They are walking on red carpet. If you see somebody focusing on, you see, we brought development. Which development? At the expense of human rights. So for me, the question is more serious. And when members of parliament and the Senate spent a whole day, Kenyans were watching them, they are talking like they're angels, but the truth of the matter is that the citizens that they are mourning with gave them a power. And one of their power is oversight. What are they oversighting? Fred, the DCI that is killing people, this criminal investigation department, was approved where? In parliament, isn't it? Can you appoint a DCI without parliament? They approved him knowing he was in the ICC. You understand? Even talk about the IG, deputy IG, where were they vetted? In parliament. So their oversight, I didn't see that this person can do this kind of evil. Now, I hear Joe saying we should not allow Langat to walk scot-free, isn't it? Langat can be impeached in parliament. Yet parliamentarians together will shed crocodile tears, massaging Kenyans' ego that they are with them.
Let's allow them to respond to it.
The last word I want to say, Fred, what we are having as a problem in Kenya is systematic failure in all institution bodies we have. You know, Chapter 15 of the Constitution created very many independent bodies. IBC is there, IPOA is there, even the other organizations which should be independent are, and none of them are independent before a state that has actually lost touch with reality, and before parliament, which is an appendage of the executive and cannot oversight.
Senator Okech, kindly respond to those grievous accusations against the Houses of Parliament.
You've rightfully said they are grievous, and I think that they're not worth responding to. because I, for once, never like to politicize these kind of deaths. And what I mean by politicizing is finding convenient phrases or statements here when there is somebody who has lost their parents. Fred, I have never seen Professor in any serious street battles, okay? I have been...
Not seeing me doesn't mean I'm not there. Are you the one with the eye of the state? Are you God to everything?
Prof, you had your time.
No, I mean, that is not, that's a reckless statement.
Because I can donate my time to him.
Senator.
Because he seems like he likes the sound of his voice. Let me tell you, Fred, in 2007, I was informed too when the possession of violence happened. And when I came back home, I had been adopted by a Kikuyu family and other 7 families, okay? And when I came back home, at that time I was in French School, Musinga, the Kikuyu family that I bear their name had lost their house and their property in the middle of the violence. I went back to the streets and I have got scars in my body from the 2007 post-election violence. In 2013, and these are things that you just find on social media or you can go on YouTube and see. In 2013, I was in the streets protesting and rioting, okay? In 2017, I was in the streets protesting, went all the way up to what we call the infamous swearing in of Raila Amolo Odinga on Uhuru Park. In 2023, Fred, I wasn't sure when we were in quarrel with Raila Odinga, I wasn't sure I would go back home. We almost died in those streets. You can talk about these things from the comfort of your philosophical, house or from the backbone of your house, but you don't know what we experience in those streets. You don't know how many people have personally lost in those streets, including Omina, who was shot right before us in Ruma. A young man who I grew up with was shot before us. And those families, when you talk about compensation, Fred, it is simple to talk about pacification because it's a convenient political conversation. That's why I feel hurt, because the decision of compensation cannot be simplified into an either-or situation. It's either justice or compensation. We fight for these things in equal measure. We fight for justice for people like Ojuang in equal measure. We fight for justice for people who are killed in equal measure. But compensation for those people is personal. It's personal to the sense, Fred, just allow me time, because I felt really, really hurt with what this gentleman is talking when he simplifies as this compensation of families who are killed in those places. My brother here, Nyutu, has just talked about the family of Kariuki, okay? He has told you that it's a single son in that family who would wake up every morning to come to the streets, to sell masks, to go back and try to provide for the mother and the father. What happens to this mother and father when this child is not there? There is nothing that can be able to substitute justice for these people, Fred. But equally, the issue of compensation cannot be simplified, cannot be trivialized in whichever form.
Shouldn't it therefore be a standardized formula for compensation for victims of, let's say, for example, extrajudicial killings? On one side, it's 2 million, 3 million will build a house, political pronouncements will give you a government job. On the other hand, we'll waive your hospital bill. Shouldn't it therefore be a standardized formula?
Let me just answer that, Fred. Standardizing is the element of simplification of what I would call compensation. Because standardizing means you are saying there's a substitute to justice. There's a substitute to this person. You cannot bring back life that has been lost.
If compensation is that important, and at some point has to be discussed, because I'm not saying that compensation should not be there. Therefore, the conversation should be, at what point does the compensation kick in and at what rate? Like victims of wildlife and human conflict, there are standards that this is how a person should be.
What is the value for human life? What is the value for lost human life? Can you put a value to it?
No.
No, you definitely
can't put a value to it.
Yet,
and that's why So that's why you'll find this in a case-to-case basis, affordability, all these issues. There are parameters that can be able to guide on a case-to-case basis, but there is no compensation that will ever be enough for Albert's father. And
Have we not opened Pandora's box here and now made it open for the government to take advantage of families that are coming from less fortunate backgrounds? That once you pay them a certain amount that they've never probably interacted with, then they'll no longer seek justice. That probably if it's a more affluent family, they will pursue justice, not compensation. Madam Elachi.
No, I think one of the things we must not go into is to try and justify, because this family is poor, then they will never pursue justice. It will not be fair.
Simplistic.
It will not be fair. Because what the government then should be doing is, and what, not even the government, let's say the courts. Can the courts also have a court that deals with very serious issues like abductions, where I have just said when I started, see, we will say all this, but the justice process, even with the same lawyers who are now talking this way, they turn around. You'll have those ones who will come and now support the other side. Then what happens? You see, because for me, our constitution has allowed all this. So how do you work in to get the right solution? Because the constitution also says whoever killed has also a right to be heard, a right to have the lawyer. That lawyer will stand in, it does not matter how. He is defending his client. It is now, and then you find on this other side, the worst will be the judge is listening at both sides. Whoever proves whether it is right or wrong gets justice. Then, you see, those are some, or you are told this case has no enough evidence. It's very sad. So look at our systems. You see, all these things, we must ask ourselves to get that right justice, because we don't also want to tell the families we will get right justice over Juang, and we will find ourselves working in a case that you can see very well, but you can work in the courts of Kenya even for 5 years. 5 years. Tell me where are the cases of Kinobado and where are they? Where are they today? Are they just there? Didn't they do it? Did that family get justice? So it's a very painful process at the moment you get to this. So when you get through everything Prof is saying, the most tormenting process is for you to now acquire what we call this justice here in what we call the court, where you don't want now to give them any compensation, but we want justice. Justice that stays 10 years.
And
We're
not getting justice and doing away with reparations or compensation for that matter. But don't you think that we are handling it a bit haphazard, Senator Nyoto, that this issue of compensation, even as a legislator, is not something that is properly legislated about? That Boniface Kariuki may get his hospital bill waived, and the other one may get 3 million
before
shillings.
my senator just comes in, I think the best we can do. And when we do it, remember we go back just the way the Bible says, the soul who came in the morning and in the evening are same. When we put in that law, you have to go back to where we started this problem and see how to appreciate those families.
Yes. Senator.
Thank you, Fred. I think there is something that you have mentioned and which I think I want to emphasize on, because it should not get lost in this particular discussion. Because you mentioned about standardized or structured compensation, which for me I think is a way to go. Just like we have a structured compensation for any life lost through any attack by wildlife, because there is that particular, that law is there. And I think that is what we should do, so that we say that should anyone ever lose their lives through a police bullet that was not justified, then this is what is supposed to be paid to the family in this manner. There should be something structured. Otherwise, what we have now, are actually donations by the president. I don't think there is any compensation given to the Ojwang family. It's only, I think, the 2 million that was sent by the president. And so when it is sent by the president as a personal contribution, then it may be viewed as a bribe to the family. It may be seen as an attempt to silence the family. That is why we must have a structured deal, a structured package for anyone who loses a loved one, especially through police bullets. And it's also important that we say this, Fred, that we need to tell the president here, or those who watch and who talk to him, should tell him that it is bad manners in Africa to announce the amounts that you have contributed when there is a death. I mean, we call it musumari in our place. It's bad manners in African tradition to go announcing that I've contributed this amount of money. So let the president send the millions that he's sending, but let it be between him and the families. This is not something to be announced. It's embarrassing, actually, because I don't know whether it is only where I come from, but I have not had any African community, especially in Kenya, where people go announcing that, I have contributed 20,000 to this. It is something that is done in secret, or in confidence. You make your contribution quietly, because this is not a wedding ceremony. This is, a family that is bereaved. And so I think that is something that the president needs to stop. This announcement of this is the amount the president has contributed is something that is, but I want to emphasize that a structured package should be very good. But allow me to say, Professor Ogola has said some things that are true. And although my colleague, Senator Eddy, was a little harsh to him, I mean, it is true that Parliament has been compromised. That is true, especially through, these coalitions, post-election coalitions that we see. And it is not only this Parliament, by the way. Even in the past Parliament, there was that, a post-coalition arrangement where, those that are in the minority, your opposition, if you may, then join government, so that government always gets its way, because it's about numbers. Even a vote, even any decision made in Parliament is through a vote. And when government with its numbers then buys off opposition, then it means that anybody or any law, any idea that opposes government is defeated on the floor of the House. And I think Professor Ogola was right in that. And ODM, which Eddie belongs to, is notorious for this. And I mean, it's not just in this government. That is what it does all the time. And I think that compromises, the structure of how Parliament is supposed to work. Because, government is supposed to have, an opposite or a government in waiting, which now then critiques government. So when the other side then is bought, in quotes, then it's always a problem, and Prof was right. But I want to tell Professor Ogola also that not everything can be done in Parliament. Well, we have a bicameral parliament. There are things that the National Assembly does, and I'm glad that Honorable Elachi is here, and which the Senate does. The Senate does not, vet any particular public officer before they get their jobs. The National Assembly is the one that is a province of the National Assembly. And so maybe that is something that Honorable Elachi, when she comes back, should tell us the issues raised by Professor Ogola, what they are doing in the National Assembly. My friend Eddie has given a chronology, and I was very keen listening, how he went to the streets in 2007, in 2013, a good chronology. And I want to commend him, because that was a job well done. But I may want to ask him, now that we are witnessing killings and injustices not witnessed in the past few years, what has happened to him and his party? Okay. That now, and that is what Professor Ogola wanted to, I actually asked. This person that has been very consistent in fighting for human rights, going to the streets. Now, with the killings that are happening now, I mean, with the injustices being visited on Kenyans, with the mismanagement of the economy, with the disrespect to even churches, what happened? Okay. Because then Professor Ogola's assertion that people, when they get money and power, they are silenced, then it will stand. So maybe it is also something that my very good, friend Eddie may want to tell us what changed. What has changed?
All right. That is fair to me to answer.
Briefly, because I don't want us to spend too much time on this. I need us to move to the next discussion. Right of reply.
Right of reply, very fast on the compensation. As I said, you cannot have a standard compensation because the issues could be different. Whatever one family is dealing with could be different. Maybe there could be a compensation commission. But I think that institutionalizing compensation sometimes can also make the country risk institutionalizing these killings. Okay? That's the danger that I'm trying to advise against. That we need to do an impact assessment that maybe there needs to be a body, whether in Parliament or outside Parliament, an independent body, maybe under Chapter 250, that could be created to be able to actually assess and actually ensure that compensation is followed up to the end in a way that, because a compensation is giving somebody money, particularly, or resources, in recognition of a loss. What is that loss? It's not the person who has died that is being paid. It is the people who are living that are being given commensurate cover for what would otherwise be the contribution for this person. But it can never be enough and adequate to bring back that life. That's why I'm saying it's a case-to-case basis, it's a family-to-family decision that we need to be a little bit more careful about how we do it. That standardizing is like saying that if you give you 3 million, it's enough to bring your family back, or it's equal to the person who has died. I don't think so. I think that there will be cases, for instance, this young man called Albert Ojwang, he left a kid who needs to go to school. Could compensation mean that perhaps the kid should be paid for the entire time? Could compensation also mean that the wife should be taken care of if there was any losses that the wife would have to buffer for the family the entire time? What about his father and mother? So I think that there needs to be a proper evaluation for every situation if it was to be formalized. But I'm cautioning that formalization of compensation
isn't it the same thing
you're
suggesting that a commission be put in place? Wouldn't that be a formal way of doing it?
No, but I'm saying if there needs to be structure, I've said if there needs to be structure, it needs to be well thought through in a way that does not standardize it, that anybody who dies, we put a 10 shillings on their head or a 10 million shillings on their head. But then on the issue of what he has talked about, my role in Parliament and what I've stood for, I don't think I've ever deviated from fighting for justice. And Newton knows that when this issue came, I take pride with a lot of humility that it is my statement in Parliament, which is supported, by the way, very strongly in the National Assembly, in the Senate, is supported my statement strongly to stop the House of Business for 2 days. And from that action alone, I think there was a ripple effect. One, we had the IG of police apologized that whatever he had given an account to was wrong, which on further probe in the floor of the House then led us to the individuals that actually were in the station on that day, the doctoring of the documents on that day, that has now seen the police who were on that day being taken to court. I don't think that we have gotten the justice yet, but I think that it put us on the path to justice. No. I'm not saying that there's justice yet. I think that it has put us into strong path to justice. No. It has put pressure on people like IG to step aside. My ideal situation, and I said it in the floor of the House, and the only thing I can do is to say it in the floor of the House and outside the floor of the House, like in these places. My ideal situation, I said that the DIG should actually resign or actually should be fired. I use the word fired. I said that the minister for Interior, the CS for Interior, for not taking action immediately. If I was the Minister of Interior, Fred, that day the first place I would have stopped is at the place that Ojwang was killed, the same night that issue came about. Go and look at my tweets. I have talked about this thing extensively, and any other deaths. And even they should have gone to make sure that the autopsy is done immediately to get us the truth, not just relying on the words of the IG. These are things that we said on the floor of the House. But he must recognize, as a senator, that on the issue of hiring ministers, the senators don't have a hand on it. Okay. 153, Article 153, Article 250 of the Constitution, all the way to 254, it is the National Assembly that hires and fires all these independent officers. So we do what we can be able to do as we can, but it's unfair for you to say that I've abandoned my path of fighting for justice when he knows that I'm within the same house and I fought for this, despite the fact that when he created this government because of his misjudgment, he created this government, we are in the ship that is sinking, right? Because of misjudgment that you are guided for, you choose to jump in the sea, or we choose to make the ship, all the ship get to where it needs to get.
I don't want to make it an exchange between the two senators now. I need us to move to a different discussion. That's even more important. Still linked to the protests, and Professor, you'll allow me. I know you would want to respond to a lot.
I don't want to.
Thank you. Blood money, that's the issue we've been discussing, but I want us to move to what is there on the front page of the Daily Nation. Ruto's draconian bill on protests. And this is a piece of legislation, proposed legislation, Public Order Amendment Bill of 2025. And they say that stung by a wave of youth-led anti-government protests, President William Ruto's administration has lined up this new bill that seeks to demarcate areas for holding demos, while stipulating fines and jail terms for anyone found in non-designated locations such as Parliament, police stations, courts, and other protected areas. And the proposal is that demonstrators will not be allowed to picket in areas within a radius of 100 meters from the precincts of Parliament, protected areas, which include State House, Department of Defense installations, a building in which a courtroom is situated. Even police stations are included in this. And I'm just wondering, Professor, if this was to come to effect, where would anyone demonstrate in Nairobi? A radius of 100 meters from Parliament takes you right next to the Milimani Law Courts, from where you have another 100 meters radius. It could take you also to the Supreme Court, from where you need to calculate another 100 meters, which would take you very close to the Central Police Station, where you'd have to calculate another 100 meters, or to State House, or to the DOD, or to any other military installation along Thika Road, NIS, GSU, Rec Squad, Kahawa Garrison. So where would we be demonstrating, and do you think this is feasible?
Fred, there is the worst right not to exercise in your life. Actually, the worst right to be denied, or even to lose, or to suspend, is right to think. That is a proposal from a member of ODM, right? And I told you very well, rank has made them too drunk that now rank is more important and comes at the expense of human rights. So, if a member of ODM, the Orange Democratic Movement, the word here which is important in those things, not orange, not movement, democratic. ODM has been known to fight for democracy. In fact, the manifesto or even the ideology of ODM is a social democracy. How can a social democracy party come up with such a thing? And let me tell you why I'm saying they have lost the right to think. If you go to somebody called René Descartes, who is a philosopher, said, I think, therefore I am. When you stop thinking, you are dead, because the guy doubted everything. The only thing he could not doubt that he's thinking. So we should ask ODM, are they still thinking when they do this? And what I'm trying to say, Fred, sorry, for the first time I'll throw my expertise because I don't have title, but I will just say that, Fred, I'm a city planning and urban policy expert. I have a degree on that, isn't it? Now, this law cannot work because of one thing, physical constraint. Do you know that if you want to know a city where these policies work, like New York, isn't it? There is 27 to 35% public space in New York City, like the Apple Park if you go to Washington, D.C., the National Mall, isn't it? But Kenya, there's zero public space. Ukitembea town, either unakanyaga tomato ya mtu, ama kitunguu, there's no public space. If you go to South Africa, also has the Public Order Act where they talk about areas of demonstration. They have a public space. In fact, I've been telling the Kenya Tourism Board, to attract tourists to Nairobi, you must create public space where tourists can walk. If you go to a place like Barcelona, there's Plaza Catalunya, where tourists can go, get entertained. There's no public space here. Even talk about Uhuru Park, it's about grass, which is a conservation, you understand? So we don't have public space. With no public space, such a policy cannot work. And these are honorable members of parliament. And they're actually spending time to debate this thing. For me, there are some things we can't debate because even there's no way to put your head around it. This bill is dead on arrival practically. It cannot be possible. It even goes against the law of contradiction, non-contradiction, because you cannot not demonstrate and also demonstrate at the same time. It's like there's no space for demonstration and there'll be demonstration. Raila Odinga with my members of ODM fought for democratic space, isn't it? Now they are not just killing it constitutionally, legally, but also physically. Like physically, you can demonstrate only when you are dead because there's nowhere to demonstrate. So these people have given a right to think even physically. The person who drafted this has intellectual, let's say, suicide or something they have committed, or if or not, maybe they are intellectual dwarfs. But the truth of the matter is that what cost will
Let's not go into personal
just
attacks.
wait. At
It is
what
an
cost,
honorable member of parliament.
up to what extent will we go to protect William Ruto? Because it is not
examine
written.
the feasibility of the veracity of the bill itself, without even talking about who presented it. And let me come to Madam Elachi. On the list of 10 issues that ODM included and UDA had on the Memorandum of Understanding, the right to peaceful assembly and protest and compensation of all pending claims is one line. We've just been talking about compensation, now the right to protest. Now, and just looking at Article 37, every person has a right peaceably and unarmed to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to present petitions to public authorities, some of which have been listed in that bill as being protected areas. I know as members you've had opportunity to receive petitions directly from protesters, be it teachers or doctors. So what exactly are we saying when we say 100 meters radius from parliament precincts?
Well, I have to read the bill. I'll be very honest, I haven't even seen it. So I don't know whether it's a proposal still in mind or it's a bill really being brought, because that's how you, and I've said here, in fact, I said it last time we were here. I said, we propose bills as members of parliament. But then there is a process of it, because definitely there is no way even the technical team will allow you to now go and infringe Article 37 and all the other articles that have given freedom of expression. So there must be a way. Fine, I said I will come here and I will explain my wish, how I would wish the bill to be, but in the end, and I really pleaded that before we start sensationalizing everything, didn't I say here, why can't we get the document after it has been, now you can see first reading, now you know now that is a bill coming, now you read. But now if we start discussing a proposal, I told you last time in the
It is a bill that's already within the workings of the National Assembly.
Yes, and I have said, I want to see its first reading. No, I'll ignore it because I haven't seen its first reading. I will ignore it because it has to go through a committee. They will tell you. There is a process. Even the committee, whether it's the legal and justice that will receive or which committee, they will tell, or the security team committee, they will look at it and they will tell you, no.
You think this is a case of a legislator being overzealous about their feelings about the...
Maybe sometimes you get emotional and you wonder, now people are crying, yes, the property has gone, deaths are still there. How do you manage? And people are taking, in fact, I can understand the emotions is people taking advantage of other people's, just people have decided, we need to fight for this and we want to petition this. Then a few people just come in to destroy completely the whole process, just the way we did last Wednesday. And that should not happen. And there must be a solution also on that it can never happen that a Kenyan will wake up in the morning wondering what just happened and I was not part of this process. No. But that does not mean also we do it in the way we will do it. No. There must, I mean, when you look at the UK, the law is there. There are many European countries, by the way, who run the law that way. So why can't we just borrow there? Because they are the ones who have given us and told us there are freedoms of these rights. We borrow from them. Okay. We bank munch and borrow from that, so that when we are doing our demonstrations, we also do it in a manner knowing tomorrow you'll wake up and you must wake up.
And the story on the Daily Nation says that the bill is currently being examined by the Committee on National Security and Administration.
Yeah,
the bill seeks to amend the Public Order Act, and among its proposal is not just the 100 meters demarcation of protected areas, is a 100,000 shilling fine if found guilty of participating in demonstrations in non-designated areas, and 3 months jail term if found guilty of participating in demos outside the demarcated areas. Senator, what do you think of this? Do you think it's feasible?
Fred, I think I want to depart from the thinking of Honorable Elachi that because it has not gone through the processes of a bill in Parliament, that we should not then be discussing it. And why I say that is because in politics, everything starts as a rumor. In fact, you know, before we got this blood-based government, the first thing we saw was President Ruto with the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga somewhere in a farm where there were cows with very big horns in Uganda. That time, there was no blood-based government. But then there was a rumor.
Is it a mispronunciation of the broad-based arrangement?
No. It is not a mispronunciation. It was actually broad-based. It metamorphosized into bread-based. It is now blood-based. But that was not the issue. The issue is that in politics, when there is a rumor, Fred, believe that it is going to happen. Any political rumor becomes a reality. It's just a matter of time. And so I think I differ. I mean, for me, I think I hold a different view from Honorable Elachi. And I think it's important that we discuss this bill, even if it has not gone through all the processes. Just in case, in the event that it comes to the House, then what are the issues in this bill? And, this bill, apart from, recommending that people do demonstrate, a distance away from these protected areas, there are also other provisions in this bill, and one of them is the limitation of numbers. I think there is a recommendation that protesters should not exceed 200 people, to make it like, just some people making some way into a particular function, not a protest. So that will kill demos as we know them if it passes. There is also this, I think it's a very weird recommendation in this bill that the organizers of the demos should actually produce the names of the people who are going to participate in these demos, and produce those names, provide a list of those names to the area police. Again, that would effectively kill demos as we know them today. And it would not be a demonstration, because how do you know how many Kenyans are dissatisfied and want to join you in protesting for a cause that affects them also? So it's a mischievous way of killing demos. There is also a provision that the organizers will have to meet the costs of damage to property. Which is now that becomes very worrying, because how do we differentiate between genuine protesters and goons? Because you remember when Boniface was shot in Nairobi, there were goons who were singing praises to Governor Sakaja, and it was there. They were saying Governor Sakaja to Melinda Gigi. What happens if I organize a demo? You are telling me that I'll meet the costs of damages. Then Sakaja or another person brings goons with instructions to destroy property. You know, that is killing demos. And this is a bill that should not be supported by any right-thinking legislator. Because, and I particularly want to appeal to ODM on this particular bill.
But it's not an ODM bill. Why are we calling it an ODM bill in the
I'm not saying it is an ODM bill. Honorable Elachi, I think it's important for you to be more
it's not
keen.
an ODM.
I've said I want to appeal to ODM. I've not said it's an ODM bill. I have said I want to appeal to ODM now that ODM is working with government not to support this bill. Okay. Only that Honorable Elachi was not patient enough. And why ODM, I want to appeal to ODM not to support this bill is because, you know, until Gen Zs came, you know ODM was the owner of demos.
You hear?
And that is... Listen, Honorable Elachi, I wish you could be patient Senator. The way I was when you were speaking. You know, until Gen Zs came around. And that is why ODM and Raila Amolo Odinga in particular don't know how to approach this matter of Gen Z protests. No. Because ODM did not think that any group of Kenyans can demonstrate without ODM until Gen Zs came. But I want to remind them, ODM, that they could be back on the streets after the elections. And to take this, I believe that you archive these things. ODM will be back to the streets after 2027 elections. Why? Because they are comfortable now because they are working with Ruto. They will support him. If he wins, I want to assure them, you know, if I have been to a particular place and I tell you it looks like this, please believe me because I've been there. You know, after the elections, and this, archive this. After elections, if William Ruto wins, in the unlikely event that he wins, he will drop ODM like a hot cake. Something, no, not hot cake, like hot ugali. You know that you do not want to hold. Because he has done that to those who supported him in 2022. So you can be sure he's going to do that. So ODM, please ensure that you do not curtail your rights to demonstrate in 2027 around October when you so badly need to protest. So don't support this bill. It's just an appeal because you will definitely Thank you, Senator. There is this matter of 100,000 Kenya shillings, fine to people who break the provisions of this bill if it passes. So many Kenyans will be jailed if this bill passes. Because how many Kenyans can afford a fine of 100 Kenya shillings, 100,000? That is why nobody should support this bill if they care for this country.
All right. Senator Eddie, what's your feeling about this attempts to curtail the right to freedom? Because this is not the first one. We saw sometime last year the then MP from Mbeere North, who's now CS for Public Service, Geoffrey Ruku, proposed a similar bill. I don't know where the Assembly and Demonstration Bill of 2024 is in the National Assembly, but I know it's still alive in the National Assembly. This is a second attempt.
For the record, this bill was proposed by Ruku the first time when ODM was doing demonstration.
Yeah.
And for the record, I was with Ruku on K24, I was with Ruku on Citizen. We just didn't come to this station, and I opposed this same bill with the word, it's a stupid bill. And stupid is an English word that means lack of intelligence and lack of common sense. It lacks those two things. And therefore, it is a stupid bill that doesn't need to be discussed. Because you cannot limit Article 37 of the Constitution by whatever means. Because limiting Article 37 of the Constitution means also limiting Article 1 of the Constitution, which says that the sovereignty of this country lies with the people. Where is that sovereignty symbolized? Where is it housed? It is housed within these same institutions that you are saying we cannot go to, okay? And those institutions, okay, they are what makes Kenya, Kenya, okay? When you come to this country, the presidency is both a head of state, head of government, but also a symbol of national unity. And where is the presidency signified? In State House. It is, and where is the other arm of government where delegation of power under Article 1, delegated duty, delegated power, delegated sovereignty is in Parliament. Delegated sovereignty, delegated power is in the judiciary. These institutions are people's institutions. I think what we are trying to address here, the reason why I call it lack of common sense and lack of intelligence, is why is there destruction of those institutions? Why are there goons getting into these maandamanos or protests and then end up destroying property, which then escalates to a violent situation between the people and the police? That's a substantive issue that needs to be addressed, but it cannot be addressed by curtailing protest. We have to figure out how do you address those issues. And for the record, when Ruku proposed that draconian law, yours truly, John Newton, was supporting Ruku at that time.
No.
I'm telling you the fact. You just go to answer, because I was in protest in the morning, and in the afternoon I was in Senate. And John Newton, with some of his colleagues that I want to mention here because they don't have right of reply, Newton has got right of reply, were very vehement about the same issues that are being discussed here. Now, let me take this time also to educate my brother, Professor, because I think, Prof, let's not see politics in everything, that this is an opportunity to say political things. I've just told you my emotions and my feeling about this bill without being political about it, because there are some things that I have to believe in as Kenyans. This is Nation, okay? And I want you to see, maybe you don't have it. Nation is saying Ruto's draconian bill protests. Under Nation here, just wait. Then under here, it is Esther Passaris who has sponsored this bill. When you're in Parliament, there are two ways with which a bill can be brought in the House. There is private members' bill. It can happen in National Assembly, it can happen in Senate, where members of Parliament can be able to sponsor a bill. Then there's government bills that come from ministerial department and agencies that come through the presidency. The moment you see this kind of bill, and then you want to reduce it into an ODM bill or a Ruto's bill, then you're politicizing a very serious conversation. Because I can tell you for a fact, Fred, that this is Esther Passaris' bill.
Yeah.
As a private member. It is not an ODM bill, it's not a Ruto's bill, and I can tell you...
Are you sure they're not...
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. You see, Aduma War, the MP of Nyakach, is an ODM member. He is on record in Parliament opposing this bill.
Yeah.
Just wait. Just give me time.
Is it possible that someone private could be influencing sponsorship of this bill?
I can't talk semantics. I talk facts.
You are attempting to talk semantics.
No, I'm talking fact. You are saying, is there a possibility that it was sponsored by somebody to do this and that? No. That's semantics. I don't have that fact. But the fact that I have is that an ODM member called Aduma War, just at the onset when this thing was in a pre-publication scrutiny. Pre-publication scrutiny means it is scrutinized under our legal departments in Parliament before a bill is brought before a committee to look at it whether it's viable. This bill is before a gentleman called Tongoyo, who is the MP of Narok West. Yes. The MP of Narok West is the chair of national security, okay? And he has written to the Attorney General to look at the viability of this law, meaning even him hasn't taken a stance on this bill. Another lady called Rosa Buyu, who is a serious ODM member, and actually, in the ODM, how do you call it, NEC, she's the head of the political issues in ODM. Yeah. Okay, she's the one who replaced Wandai. That's where the party gets its DNA in terms of political direction. Said that this is an impractical bill that we cannot support. Even before it got back to the first reading that Beatrice Alaji is talking about. So there is no need of politicizing this issue to make it an ODM issue or to make it a Ruto issue. I know that's palatable, that's sellable, that's nice headline, but it's unfair to a parliamentary process that a private member who perhaps doesn't know how to deal with the chaos in Maandamano, doesn't know how to deal with a number of these frustrations of destruction of property and deaths, then thinks that this is the solution. It is not a solution. Fred, I have traveled this world over. If you go to DC today, I can guarantee you will find people demonstrating outside the State House, which equivalent, which is the White House in DC. They are outside there, they are demonstrating, but they don't destroy property. They don't attack the State House. Yeah. So it just means that where we are, and we have to appreciate, the Gen Zs have done a good thing. They have attempted to put a face of demonstrations where there is a political leader doing it. What does that mean for our democracy as a people? It means that this is a good start. It might be violent, it might look like there's a lot of destruction, but the United States is 200 years ahead of us. Maybe in another 10 years or 20 years, depending on how we mature faster, we will have demonstrations that people will go to demonstrations peacefully, petition those institutions without fighting and without destroying them. This is the critical thing that I love about Gen Z, that we can have organic demonstrations that can go and come back. We just need to get to a point where they are peaceful, they are not destructive, and they are not hijacked by the political class that we are seeing hijacking this movement, because then they destroy them. Okay. Lastly, the reason why I finished that idea of hijacking political protest is because if you look at the face of Gen Zs in 25th last year, June last year, I dare say, go to your archives. You will find the face of Gen Zs in the entire country. You will find that Eldoret, there was Gen Zs on 25th. Go and look, on 25th June last year. Eldoret, there was Gen Zs. Mombasa, there was Gen Zs. Everywhere there was Gen Zs. And the most significant part is that come and look at the profile of Nairobi and look at that map. If you had to do like an exit map, right, of the demonstrations.
Yeah.
There were demonstrations in Jacaranda. There were demonstrations in Mathare. There were demonstrations in Mukuru kwa Jenga. There were demonstrations in Kibera. Before you even talk about the CBD, I want you to go and take a very honest map of this 25th June and what happened. Yeah. Life was normal in the entire Eastlands. This is a fact. Life was normal in Mathare, where I also happen to have grown up. That life was normal in Dagoretti North. Yeah. Dagoretti South, there was a bit of chaos up to Junction. Yeah. Life was normal in the notorious Kibera. Life was normal in Jacaranda, where there was Gen Zs. There were a sparse of violence in Kitengela. There was a sparse of violence in the corner that comes towards Thika Road. What does that mean? I don't need to profile anybody, but I can tell you for a fact. It means that there was a deliberate hijacking of this Gen Z movement. Okay. And we need to protect Gen Zs against this hijacking, and you too must actually appreciate that the Gen Z's movement is a movement that has brought the idea of protest to be organic, and we need to make them that amorphous and protected against any destruction and against.
Let's give Senator Nyoto an opportunity to respond to allegations that you supported this bill at some point last year.
You know, Eddie is a very intelligent person, and that is why he's my friend, because I don't make fools, my friend. But today, Eddie is a changed man. He cannot lie because he's lying, and I challenge him to produce that particular part of the Hansard that I supported these draconian, recommendations by Honorable Ruku. I challenge him to produce that. Because, and I want to tell I will. And I want to tell Eddie that although I come from the mountain, that I have always had my principles. And that is why, and I want to say it here, that's why I have never ever disrespected or insulted the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. That is Junior too. And so I don't support things just because, other people are supporting it. I have my principles. I have my standing. And I challenge Eddie to bring that. I can never ever support oppression from whichever quarter, by the way. It's not just now that President Ruto is president. Any oppression of Kenyans from whichever quarter will meet, a very strong opposition from me, at least now that I have a voice. And whenever it is in my own little ways, I will never ever support oppression. I'll never ever support violation of human rights, because I am a believer and I know that human life is sacred, and we are here by right. By the way, every Kenyan you see around here, they are here by right, and I say it so many times. No Kenyan lives in Kenya at the pleasure of the president. It's our right. I can never ever support that. But now, I also want, Eddie, I was patient.
You and I must support this.
Senators,
must go against this bill when it comes to Senate.
Eddie, let me finish my submission.
Just 60 seconds so that we take a
Yes, yes. So I very quickly I want to say, because Eddie has, confused, viewers, that, it's when it's a member's private bill, it is squarely for that member. We have people, politicians work through others.
No.
When there is something, I'm a politician, Elachi, you cannot say no. When there is something that a politician wants to do, you have seen petitioners that you do not know making a petition in court about very weighty matters that requires, very serious understanding. But they are sponsored and they petition as private individuals or as, as private voters. This happens. This happens. I'm saying it does not happen.
You yourself, talk about yourself.
Eddie, please.
Allow him to.
Eddie, please have table manners, Eddie. It's my time. You had your time.
We need to take a break, Senator.
Yes. So let me finish. You have to control. Eddie is getting overexcited. He's.
I'm not overexcited. I just have clarity.
So it happens. You can sponsor a bill through somebody, and I want to respond very quickly about the narrative Eddie is trying to peddle here is that this protest on last Wednesday was a Mount Kenya affair. That is what he's trying.
I didn't say that.
And I'm saying that is the impression you want to create by saying that there are no protests. It was not organic because there were no protests in Madare, there were no protests in Jakarta, there were no protests in Ibera. It is simple. You do not have to be intelligent to know why there were no protests. You only need to be somebody who lives in Kenya. Those are areas that are ODM support bases. ODM is in government. So are there areas, of course, couldn't protest. But I want to inform you, just because maybe he doesn't know, there were also protests in Eldoret, in Mombasa, and in so many other places. So, let us, even as you are told by government, please go and do this, say this, create this narrative that it is one community's problem with the government, please, let us be fair and reasonable. We cannot afford, Eddie cannot afford to be this trivial. He's an intelligent person.
All right, the front page of the Daily Nation reads, Ruto's draconian bill on protests. It's the same headline on the front page of the Standard. State House and Bunge, no-go zone in new anti-demos bill. That's a discussion we've been having. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll move this conversation forward.
Is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home, do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water.
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47. This is the State of the Nation. A look at the big headlines, and I'm still in studio with Senator Joe Nyoto, MP Beatrice Elachi, Senator Eddie Okech, and Professor Fred Ogola. We want to, and I think we feel the need to move this conversation forward. Over the weekend, we had appeals for a national conversation on the issues that we've been facing as a country. One of these proposals came from the former Prime Minister, Party Leader ODM, Raila Odinga. He said it is time that we have a national conversation because of the kind of crisis we face. The other person who suggested the same was former CS for Interior, Fred Matiang'i, that it is time for us to talk. Yet listening to the House that could provide direction towards that kind of conversation, which is the National Assembly, the kind of debate that we saw last week around the demonstrations was simply a blame game match. It was to say this person is behind these demonstrations, probably even trying to suggest or draw a narrative that it is one community that is behind these demonstrations. Do you think that's the kind of approach we should have to a national conversation? Isn't it already too divisive from the National Assembly's perspective?
Yeah, but even before you discuss about the National Assembly, when a politician says, let's talk, what do they want? And from the moment we know Honorable Raila Odinga, whom I have a lot of respect for, when he says, let's talk, there's always something he wants. Because they say that, there's a song that says that sometimes a bad boy cries to get what they want, isn't it? Or sometimes a bad girl cries when there's something they really want to hide. So what do they want? When they say we want to talk, the last talk, what did he get away with? NADCO. It was about there should be leader of opposition, then there was supposed to be some positions. When Gen Zs went to the street and there was a need to talk, we said, let it be akin to the talks that brought the National Accord. Eventually, the talk was bilateral. We had said as governance experts that the whole country needs to talk, not just the position side of the opposition and government. We said bring in civil society, bring in the business people now who are getting their business now being touched, being looted and the rest. Bring in the young people who are saying there's no job. And Fred, even if they talk, and after the talk, the unemployment level is what it is now, that talk will only be between them. Because when they say they want to talk, who will be talking? First of all, they'll gazette how they'll talk. They'll gazette the terms. Everyone will be locked outside, and the people who have come to the street with a flag, with a phone, with water, those people will be locked out. And if they are not in the epicenter of this discussion, and if you look at the point they agreed there between Ruto and Raila, the solution was neither. These people gave the 9 points why they wanted, they are doing protest. They told Ruto, dissolve cabinet and parliament. Maybe Ruto has no powers to dissolve parliament, but at least he had the chance to dissolve cabinet. And they gave the qualities of members of parliament they wanted. They talked about age. We have people in the cabinet who should be in a monument, which should be somewhere in where you go to see animals of history. Like I'll justify. ICT is born before computer. We are in the age of AI. Young people are using AI in an advanced way. CS in Rwanda is below 35 years old. How do they know? So I'm trying to say they ask for dissolve cabinet or parliament, bring Linda Mama. They are very legitimate, not even out of this world. Bring EduAfia. Take education funding model to pre-2022. You get me? They talked about the opulence, corruption, accountability. These are the issues we should discuss. Now, between Raila Odinga sitting together with Ruto and these people, they don't even have the legitimacy to discuss about this. So, as far as I'm concerned, the main problem here is young people don't have jobs. Even if you bring in Jesus Christ to preside over that discussion and you don't solve the youth unemployment, it's difficult. And I want to talk about Fred because I'm not here just to lament. The youth unemployment has been created by the fact that we had too many universities being opened, so many opportunities to study, but without connecting the dots. Economics is about connecting the dots. When you open up so much opportunities for people to study without consumerate job opportunities, the most frustrated person is an intelligent person. No, if you don't have education, you have no degree, you have no master, you cannot feel so frustrated with unemployment because actually you have not invested money. But look here, these young people have taken help. All of them, 92% of them have not cleared from help portal. You get me? Then these government people, they advertise jobs, then they tell you they want help clearance. Yet you finish university, 3 years down the line, you've never worked anywhere. You are selling masks, for example, like my brother Boniface, isn't it? How can you clear help? So in Kenya, I want to talk about quick wins and fast and long-term wins. The first quick win, I'm very fast. Let us remove these things whereby for you to apply for a job, you need what's called tarmacking seed capital. One, these people put Article 6 on the young people that you must be cleared by DCI. You have to spend 1,050 more, isn't it? You have to photocopy all your certificates and certify by a lawyer. You have to certify government ID given to you to the government. You have to certify everything, even your KRA PIN. You are being told to bring tax clearance or tax compliance certificate, and you have never paid a tax. Somebody wants you to bring them on employment. So you spend, I've calculated, a minimum of 18,000 shillings to apply for a job that you have only 2% of getting. So in 1 year, if a young person has applied 5 jobs, you take 18, you multiply by 5, and they have no income. So those needs need to be killed right now. And then secondly, creates jobs. But this talking whereby politicians want to talk, and when Matiang'i says, let us talk, Matiang'i means let's listen to what the young people are saying. Why should we talk? Just look at what they have said. Their demands are very clear. When they say, Murkomen should resign, so you make a decision. Langat should go home. Discuss about that.
Okay.
They are discussing about their issues. Do we need talks to address integrity? Do we need talks to address corruption?
Thank you, Prof.
The killings and human rights?
Thank
we don't
you
need
for
talks
that.
for it.
But it should be seen as an acknowledgement that there's something definitely wrong with our nation, that the former Prime Minister even suggests the need for conversation at the national level. But as Professor said, this calls coming from politicians could be seen as disingenuous, that you politicians are known when you call for discussions is because you want something at the end.
You know, one I respect, Prof, and he has written very many books. And we remember the talks never started, even with politicians, when the real talks started. So I'm hoping he will start the talks. He should not throw the ball anywhere further. When you remember the former governor of Kivuda and team, when they started the talks at Fungamano, it started and then it was picked. Where is that team? Where is that team? Prof is part of it, can do it, because he's absolutely one of those bright Kenyans who, and I've always said, we need the third party. Yes, we have the politicians. We need a very neutral person to come in. Now that the church also has found itself in a space that is not, because they used to do that. So where is this? Because whether we like it or not, you might say Baba this, but thank Baba. In all his talks, there is a document that comes out. It does not matter how that document is, but it brings some issues on the table that are critical issues that we must look at. So in all this, how do we bring a document on the table that can start bringing up solutions in Limoli on what we are seeing? Because we need one. Whether we want to say this, what will be the solution? Because the problem, as he says, yes, I've always said, we went into a vigorous way of doing the education system, but we did not have the solutions of our young people. So we cannot come every time to bash, but we must go back on the drawing board and say, we made a mistake. And after we have made this mistake, how do we deal with this mistake as where we are and prevent so that the next also does not find itself in the same situation this generation is finding itself. And so even if you say unemployment in a digital world, where I've decided I'll only have 2 people to work for me, the rest we shall do it on digital, then what happens to that young person? So the best, I said and I'll repeat, we must rethink, either have a 7-year tax break on young people who are below 35, and we tell ourselves from here, but that tax break is not also to be misused, but it is to help them to have a camp or a hub somewhere where they can rethink and innovate and start creating their own jobs. And
I hear a lot of suggestions from what you're saying, that things that could possibly form the agenda of the national conversation, if at all. But what is the intention? It's just a few years back, I think 1 or 2 years, where we had the National Dialogue Conference and the NADCO came out. But what was the intention? That appears to have been purely political. What would the intention be?
That's what I was saying. We have to be very careful when we start so that you don't bring again a solution, or you don't think it is more political than bringing the solutions that we would want. And that is why I would want to plead with agencies. I know you say you don't want, but there's a way you can just do a document. You don't even need, you can throw it everywhere on social media where let people read the points that they need to come. If you feel you don't want to have a leader, you don't want to have this, it will be hijacked, fine. But in the end, they have to understand you will take over Kenya. Right. On which way? You must think through also.
Senator Okech, many have accused the former Prime Minister of being disingenuous in the suggestion that we need a national conversation. What would be the need for such conversation?
I think I followed the former Prime Minister in a number of conversations that he has had, and he has indicated a number of things. You know, one of the conversations that he had in public, when he was very emotional about it, by the way, on the number of bloodshed that we are experiencing in the last few months, the loss of life, the loss of property notwithstanding, and therefore the violent nature that the political landscape is taking currently is bothering anybody. It's bothering him, it's bothering me, it's bothering all of us, it's bothering the Prime Minister. And therefore the idea is to be able to deal with that issue of the ensuing lack of stability in terms of just political stability in the country that is leading to this violence. And of course the pretext is the Gen Z movement. But that said, this is one thing that I do agree with my brother Professor Ogola on, which is the underlying root cause would be what would you want to have a conversation about. And the underlying root cause as per now is economic emptiness among young people. The lack of opportunities despite the fact that you're well educated. And even if you're not educated, you've got some minimum skills, because there are some jobs that need skilled laborers or unskilled laborers and education. There are different levels, but from the unskilled levels to all the way the most educated young person in this country, there's just a small opportunity for them to be able to thrive. And I think that conversation, for me, starts and ends at the effective running of government. How can we make sure that the government is efficient and effective in terms of leakages in resources that we have in government currently, so that they can be able to be defrayed from waste, to be able to capture opportunity for young people? How can we be able to ensure that the government, for instance, can be able to be innovative around areas that can be able to give more people opportunities in terms of these young people. I'll give you two quick examples. Today we have been doing the finance bill, right? It's unfortunate that Kenyans never gave the Senate the opportunity to have an eye into the finance bill, drafting, writing, and passing. You know, the Senate does not deal with money bills. But if the finance bill was to come to the Senate today, why can't you structure what we call tax incentives? Today, in our country, we've got serious companies that are working. Fred, Equity Bank, if you look at the top earners at Equity Bank, people are earning 6, 7, 8 million shillings in Equity Bank. If you look at Safaricom, people are earning the same amount of money. If you look at KPMG, all big companies that are performing in our country today are earning these big monies. Why couldn't we even think about innovation in our tax structure so that you say, I'm going to defray income tax for the top earners in Kenya, if you will be able to put policies within your companies to employ younger people in the cadre of 30 to 50,000. Stop earning much. The other side, I'll reduce your income tax from 35%, perhaps to even 15%, and then allow you to employ more young people within your companies. So that is one. Number two,
youth employment.
Yes, but just very quickly. Number two, the most young people in the digital space, we know very well that the government came up with something called the Government Advertisement Agencies. The Government Advertisement Agency does a budget of about 5 billion, okay, to be able to do its advertisement and stuff. Why can't we think about how do we deploy that capital into the private sector to allow it to give room to employing young people? Because where government is doing these kind of things and then end up owing the Standard, for instance, 3 billion, then Standard is going to lay off about 200 young people or 300 every other time, we are losing those job opportunities. I mean, if you gave me time, I'll give you a number of incentives that the government can structure to be able to put employment to young people, including what you talked about when you leave the university. Why can't you, perhaps instead of running ASLA funds, which is 50 billion, if you think about it, the money that is given to young people is sometimes just money to consume because of their realities. Why can't you repurpose something like ASLA fund, which is 50 billion, give it to NGOs, give it to companies that can employ young people, and then give them what we would call a stipend subsidy, okay? So that when young people leave universities, for the first 2 years, before they pay their help, they can be able to go to an NGO or any private sector, and they're getting subsidized stipend for 2 years to cover them up as they try to do what is calling tarmac. There are a number of innovations that I think that
should form the agenda.
And the conversation that the agenda should be, number one, economic empowerment of young people. Number two, economic empowerment of young people. Number three, economic empowerment of young people subsidized in our area of jobs and areas of income. I think this is where the conversation should go.
Senator Nyoto, do you see the need for national conversation? And if at all, what should be the agenda?
Yes. You know, national dialogue, Fred, is something, it's not new. There has been calls for dialogue for many, many years. In fact, I think I've read that even during Moi's rule, there was a call for dialogue. And there is that famous quote by people who, of course, quote the late Kariuki Chotara, God rest his poor soul in peace, that he didn't understand what dialogue was all about. And no, it was in the university. And so I think he called upon the vice chancellors that if the students wanted dialogue, then they can actually get 2 dialogues each every morning. So dialogue is an old is an old thing. I mean, it's something that is very important. It's a national conversation, I think, that they're calling for, which would every Kenyan of goodwill would support dialogue. But this dialogue must be genuine. Why do I say that it should be genuine, if at all it happens to come? Right now, we have a problem because you see President Ruto saying that he's trying to unite all Kenyans. But if you are realistic, William Ruto thinks that, his unity with ODM means uniting all Kenyans. But I want to say this, and this is the truth. For example, and I'm still on dialogue, William Ruto cannot say that he's uniting all Kenyans by, breaking his own house kicking out his wife, his children, and then joins one particular person, one particular side that has also done the same. And why do I say these are not malicious? I mean, as at the time we went for elections, Fred, who was with William Ruto? Who was with Raila Amolo Odinga? So, any dialogue that happens must involve all the parties.
Politicians?
Raila Amolo, just a minute. Raila Amolo Odinga, I have many people areas that
because we only have
Raila Amolo Odinga should come to the dialogue table with Kalonzo Musyoka and Martha Karua. Those were the people he was with. You cannot say that Raila Odinga now can unite with William Ruto if Raila Odinga does not have his old friends. William Ruto had Rigathi Gachagua, had Mithika Linturi, had Justin Muturi, had people like Dindi Nyoro, you know, then that house now comes, that is how what you would call now unity. But this dialogue should not involve politicians only. And I think I want to support Professor Ogola. We cannot have a national dialogue where we want Kenyans to believe that when two groups of politicians come together, then that is national dialogue. This national dialogue, if it comes, it must have, political formations. It must have Gen Zs on the table. And I want to say that Gen Zs should actually have a higher number on this particular table. Why? Because they have longer to live in this country than anybody else that will be on that table. And so their stake is higher. Because, we are talking about people, 20-something-year-olds. Okay. If they're able to live to 100, then they have about 80 years. They have more shares in this country than the rest of us who are older. And so Gen Zs must be on that table, and they must be, their representation must be higher. We must have on that table religious leaders. All religions, apart from, the proscribed sects, should be on that table. We must have on that table professionals like Professor Ogola here, professionals, people coming from, the professional world. We must have on that table business leaders. This is now something that would now be something that Kenyans would agree is a national dialogue, plus any other interest group. But Gen Zs must have the highest representation on that particular table because of the reasons that I've given.
Thank you, Senator. I only have 3 minutes for your parting shot, and this is just a parting shot. Don't take it to another new discussion. Professor, 45 seconds only.
So my parting shot is simply said that looking at the state of the nation, there's a word in Greek called hamartia, which means, let's say, a curse. There's a curse in the head of state at the moment. Everything it touches just slips away. And unfortunately, anybody joining him joins in the curse. And when you lose you lose your power, you lose your demeanor, you lose direction, you lose legitimacy. And the president must know that he has lost legitimacy. So any conversation should be about legitimacy. And legitimacy is not about that he was not elected. It's about the social license to rule Kenya. And that social license means that you have to deliver to what is your mandate as a head of state, a head of government, that the Kenyan economy needs to come back, that we need stability, national security. All these killings and deaths should be taken away. Human rights must be respected. Because even if they say that, even animals, some human beings are being jailed for violating animal rights. So if we are now talking about human rights, then we are at a crisis, and Kenyan issue is not just a problem. Now it's a crisis that must be addressed urgently.
And I need to give the rest also 45 seconds just for a parting shot.
My parting shot is, as a Kenyan, reflect and think, what does it mean to be a Kenyan? And today, my heart goes out to the family of Albert Ojwang. We are having the mass today. For Ojwang, and I hope that God will give them grace and the strength as a family, and as well as the family of my brother Boniface Kariuki, who lost his life unfortunately, and the family is in mourning. If being a Kenyan mean we are one people, I am because you are, and therefore because you are, therefore I am. Let's stand with these families and many more who have lost their lives. But most importantly, let's find a way of contributing in building our nation.
Thank you so much, Senator. Madam Elachi.
I also want to just send my condolences again to Mama Ojwang and his family, and to Boniface's family, and to say it is very unfortunate. And as I said when we were doing the prayer breakfast, that sometimes, you know, you repent and people think it is a joke, that it is wrong for the blood of young people to cry in the soil of Kenya, the way Cain was told by God that the blood of Abel will cry in that soil. And this is where we are. And we must think, but also about the conversation. It is not about, again, the politicians to be on the table. No, I'm not agreeing on that. It is the young people to come. We come and listen. Let them tell us what they feel about Kenya after the 2030 vision of Mwai Kibaki. They are supposed to start their vision of 2060, 2070 on how the country will move. And so that's the conversation we should be having on the table. That the late Mwai gave us 2030, we are just a few years to come to end it. Did we achieve? No. Is it that's why we have these challenges? Yes. How will the young people now take us from here? And that's why I said that conversation is no longer about us, it is about them and the country to 2070.
Thank you so much. Yes. Senator, finally, 45 seconds only.
Well, thank you. Once again, my condolences to the family of Boniface Kariuki and Albert Ojwang and every other family that has lost a loved one, even those that have died through other causes. We want to pass our condolences to them. To the President, I think I want to ask him to, for once, remember that Kenyans are human beings and they are not just animals, as per his study in zoology, and to start thinking more and acting more on human rights and basically protecting human life. Young people, the Gen Zs and young people must be our priority agenda going forward, because if we do not do something about the problems that bedevil them, then we are actually waiting for the bomb to tick, because the bomb is already there. I think I want to ask President Ruto, if at all he has any link to the proposed draconian bill on protests, to drop it, because Kenyans will not allow anybody to control how they exercise their rights as per Article 1 of the Kenyan Constitution. And because we have so many problems with the CSs who are not independent, that is why even Murkomen, while giving orders to shoot to the police, he said there was another force. To just ask the president to emulate what President Kibaki did, let your CSs have independence. Please don't micromanage ministries, because that is a problem that is bedeviling this country.
Okay.
And finally, to ask him to lower his anger against Kenyans, not to think that any Kenyan hates him. We elected him because he loved us, but he started disrespecting people and hating people. So, violence begets violence, hatred begets hatred. Let him start loving the people the way people loved him.
Thank you so much. John Nyoto, Senator Murang'a County. Beatrice Elachi, MP Dagoretti North, Eddie Okech, Senator Migori, and Professor Fred Ogola, economics and governance expert. Our panelists this morning on State of the Nation on Morning Cafe, discussing the big headlines. Ruto's draconian bill on protest. I'm just reading straight from the paper. That's the Daily Nation. Blood money on the front page of the Standard. And of course, the proposals to have a national conversation to address the crisis that we have. Thank you so much for your time at TV47 today. After the break, we switch gears. Today being Wednesday, it is matters relationships. Would you take back a cheater? That's the question we are asking this morning. Anno Dida will be driving that conversation. My name is Fred Ndimuli.